and welcome to my kitchen. Today is a beautiful day because I'm going to be baking with my favourite ingredient, Marmite. Today, I've got 3 recipes in one almost. Firstly, I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful walnut bread, but not just any walnut bread, Marmite roasted walnut bread. So if you are a Marmite lover, you will absolutely love this. If you're not, it'll be a walnut bread. Then once we've got this beautiful, beautiful crispy bread, I'm going to show you how to make the best cheese toastie out of it. What's not to love? But first, it's got to start with a great bread. So I've got 400 grams of strong bread flour here. This is a plain white strong bread flour. I'm then going to add 100 grams of wholemeal. Okay, so in it goes. Also, just to let you know, Emily is back. She's back on the edit. She's back on the buttons because she loves Marmite walnuts. Yeah. Doesn't like Marmite, likes Marmite walnuts.
It's different. It's next level walnuts, isn't it?
I'm converting her to the dark side. Right, so I've got 2 different flours. So we're just going to blend this like so. And just lift it up, open your fingers up, and just let the 2 flours blend together so you get a nice, even consistency all the way through. Right, okay, so a little bit of coffee. Now, as always, if you have any questions while you're watching this, please do post them below. I will answer them as best I can, or the guys at Masterclass will answer them for me. So, I've got 1 sachet of yeast, which I can't get into, so that's all right, we'll get a knife. Now, normally a loaf of bread would be 500 grams of flour, okay? And 1 sachet of dried yeast. If you're using fresh yeast, double it. So you want 14 to 15 grams. And you can buy fresh yeast in supermarkets now. Okay, and then you want 10 grams of salt. So just table salt. Don't use the really good sort of Malden sea salt crystals. You'd be wasting your money. Use cheap table salt, okay? Just the normal stuff. And again, blend it all together, okay? That's it. Now, I'm just going to make a well in the middle. Can we see that all right, Emily?
You can.
Yeah, using your fancy overhead one.
Yeah.
There we go. And then I've got my water. Now, this is room temperature water. I've got about 325 grams here. Or mils, whichever you want to do. Because don't forget, if you're weighing your water, the mils and the grams will be exactly the same. So it's really easy to measure. Then hand like a claw motion and roll it around the bowl like an electric mixer would. Okay? And then just bring the dough together. There we go.
Do you have to do the 2 blends of flour, Pete, or can you use one or the other? Or
You could easily just do all white. You could do all brown if you want. What you find with brown flour is it absorbs more moisture and it is slightly lower in gluten, so you won't get as stretchier bread. And it'll drink more liquid. So what you'll find is you need to add more to it. Now, I'm just going to add the rest of my 100 grams of flour because I didn't add it all. Just roll your hand around the bowl and eventually the dough will come clean from the bowl and just kind of sit on your hand. So I'm almost there. Right, so there. It will lift straight off. Now, let's just clean up, get that dough on the worktop. Now, it's really important that you don't add more flour, okay? It might feel sticky and it might feel a bit porridgey. Don't panic, all right? Don't add more flour because it'll just tighten the dough and it won't have the elasticity to rise on the proof. So, hold it with one hand, push it away with the other, and then bring it back. And if you're doing this by hand, you've got about 10 minutes worth of work to do. So just pushing the dough away from you and bringing it back on itself. But please, don't be tempted to add more flour. You will get a better loaf if you need this without more flour.
well, if you were to do it in a mixer,
Yeah.
is the timing? Is there a certain setting you should have it on if you're going to do it? If you
No, I mean, you could put it on a low setting on a mixer and let it mix for 10 minutes and let it do all the work. I've no problem with that. I just wanted to show you how to do it by hand so that everyone can do it, because not everyone's got a mixer, but you know, I use my mixer all the time. You could even do this in a bread maker if you wanted to, and just do the dough setting. I think it's either dough or pizza setting on a bread maker, and it will make a great dough, and it'll do all the hard work for you, and you can go off and do something else. But you can you see the dough's changing already, Emily?
Yeah.
It's not as sort of spreading as much, and it's got that lovely elasticity. Look at that. It's going to be a fabulous loaf as long as you put the work in. So you can see now the dough has come really smooth and it's nice and stretchy. That's exactly how we want it to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to return it to the mixing bowl. We're going to cover this with a tea towel and leave this to double in size. Now, I would like to leave it for a couple of hours. You could put it in the fridge and leave it overnight if you wanted to, and that would slow the proving process right down, but increase the flavour because it's had more time to develop. But it's entirely up to you. So we'll put this off. Right, now while the bread's proving, it's time to make the most amazing Marmite walnuts. Now, Marmite is very thick and dark and rich and kind of, it won't stick to my walnuts. So I've got to find a way of getting the Marmite to coat the walnuts really easily. And I've worked on this and I've come up with a way of doing it. So, first things first, a decent amount of Marmite. Look at that, Emily, you'd like that on your toast, wouldn't you? Emily's convinced she doesn't like Marmite, but every time I add it to something, she likes it.
Nice.
Water, okay?
This is the nicest way to have it.
So we're now going to dilute the Marmite, okay? So we're just going to bring the pan to the boil with the Marmite. Now, for those of you who are in Australia and have Vegemite, I'm sorry you're after eating Vegemite, it's just an imposter, but it's as good as you can get. Marmite's the real deal, in my opinion. So, we're bringing it up to the boil. And now, we've got a dilution of Marmite. Okay? Oh, smells so good. There we go. Now, we can add this to our walnuts, okay? So, in with your walnuts. Emily has requested that we make extra so that she can sit and nibble them because she doesn't like Marmite. All right? Now, for those of you who do not like Marmite and have absolutely zero interest in Marmite, and I know you're out there, that's okay. What I suggest you do is you just roast your walnuts in a pan on a medium heat with a splash of olive oil for about 3 to 4 minutes just to make them nice and nutty and crunchy and that sort of thing. You don't have to glaze them in Marmite. I love Marmite so much, I would put it in the bread, I'd put it on the bread, you name it, wherever possible. So, what we're going to do now is turn the heat up and then just stir the walnuts. And now you can see that all the walnuts are getting coated in that lovely Marmite. And as the water evaporates, we then get a complete coating on the walnuts of Marmite.
If you don't necessarily like walnuts, is there anything else you could use?
You could do like seeds.
Yeah.
You know, you could, if you have a nut allergy or anything like that, you could use pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, do the same thing. Dilute the Marmite, put your seeds in, and then boil the water away, and you'll end up with that's a really good idea, that. I'm going to try that. You could do that. What else could you use? That's probably about it. Seeds, really, what you'd add to bread. And obviously you don't have to use Marmite. You could use Bovril if you don't like Marmite, actually. That would work. Might be a bit beefy, but it'd work. Right. It's all a bit beyond you, this, isn't it, Carlos? You're like, Marmite? What?
Do you like it?
I've not converted him yet.
I'm in the grey area. I don't love it and I don't hate it.
You can't. You have to be one or the other. Right, so while the walnuts are boiling down, now I can take some flour, dust my worktop, a little bit of flour in my hands, and then we can get the proved dough. So this is one I made earlier, so I made this last night, put it in the fridge overnight, and you can see how glutinous it is. It's really nice and stretchy.
Quite satisfying, that.
Love
Isn't it?
Making bread. Absolutely love it. Right, can you see that, Emily? Can you just cut into that and see, you see how that's reducing right down? All the water is disappearing now. And it's really important you turn your attention onto this because you don't want to lose all the water and burn this now. Okay, so we are almost there. I can just see that last little bit of water. And now the walnuts are starting to glisten a little bit with that lovely Marmite.
Oh, just pass me the pan.
Almost there. Right, so let's just have a little look at this dough. All right, so a little bit of flour. Now, we're just going to, can you see those lovely air bubbles there? Just going to really just open the dough out. Stretch it. I'm not going to try and knock all the air out yet. I just want to open it out. Oh dear. Right. Look at those. Can you see those?
Yeah.
They are amazing. They are so good.
Stop teasing.
So, Marmite walnuts, in you go. I wonder how many times I will say Marmite on this programme today. Anybody who wants to count them up? Anybody who can tell me how many times I say Marmite, send a message to me. I'll send you a Masterclass prize. There you go. Marmite, Marmite, Marmite. Okay, so on with my Marmite walnuts. Okay, so let's now fold the dough over and over again and encase all those lovely walnuts. Didn't say it that time, did I? And then just work them in and push the dough away from you. So fold it towards you and push it away. All right? And we're just going to work the walnuts into the center of the dough and get some sense of sort of even distribution. Okay? Is that off? There we go. Right. Oh, you can see them just sneaking out there. So if you see one sneak out, take it, pop it back inside. Now, you can buy proving baskets, okay? You can go to cookserveandenjoy.com and you can get one there. So, but what I wanted to show you is an alternative way to prove this dough. Because the hydration of this bread, i.e. the amount of water that I've put in it, is quite high, it needs something to support itself while it proves. So what you can do is you could put it in a loaf tin, absolutely no problem, let it prove and double in size, job's done. Bake it 200 degrees after it's proved and doubled in size and it'll be lovely, no problem at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to prove it in a bowl and then we'll transfer it and we'll bake it, okay? So I've got my mixing bowl here and I've got a tea towel. All right, and I'm just going to take some flour and I'm going to dust it with some flour. Okay, pop that to one side. Is that all right there? It's not in any of your ways, is it?
Fine.
No. Turn it inside itself and go all the way around and tuck it into the middle. All right, then turn it over and take your hands at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Turn the dough like that, yeah? And what it's doing is it's tucking all the little weaknesses underneath the bread, okay? And then if I turn it over, you can see that that's where the weakness is. So I just need that tiny little bit of flour on my hands, not on the bread, just on my hands. So let's turn it there. Now, the top of the bread needs to go face down into the bowl, okay? So let's pop that in there. We're now just going to fold that over. I'm going to let that prove and double in size. Yeah. Right, my bread is proving. It's not far off doubling in size. That is, at that point, you want to be transferring it onto a tray and into the oven. So we've got just enough time to make our toasty filling. Now, for me, there's nothing more comforting than a really good cheese toasty or a grilled cheese if you're in America. And I think I've come up with a really great combination of cheeses. And the way to make it really deliciously creamy is by adding some egg yolks, a little bit of mascarpone cream and some mustard. But first of all, let's get a couple of egg yolks in here. Then we can talk cheese, all right? So I'm going to save the whites for something else. And I'm just going to use the yolks because it kind of gives a really delicious richness, okay? So.
Do you have to use the eggs?
No, you don't. It's just not as good. It's nicer with them. I've actually done it with mayonnaise. If you haven't got egg yolks in the fridge, or eggs, I've actually put a spoonful of mayonnaise. And I know you're looking at me like I'm some kind of freak there, Emily. But what's mayonnaise made out of? Egg yolks.
Yeah.
So it can be done. Mascarpone cream. Now, you could use a little bit of double cream if you wanted to, or a bit of creme fraiche. The only thing with creme fraiche is it's got that sort of slight acidity to it. So I'm going with mascarpone cream because it's yum.
This is a weekend treat, cheese sauce.
Yeah, well, it's Saturday morning, you know, this is all up for the weekend. Dijon mustard, okay, because it just works really well. But if you're not a mustard fan, don't put it in, or if you prefer other type of mustard, that's okay. All I would say is if you use an English mustard, be sparing because it's like rocket fuel. It's always hot. So we're just going to mix those together, and that's kind of our base. And we're using this to kind of make almost like a cheese sauce, okay? It's going to be good, I promise you. You're going to like this one. Okay, so now grated mozzarella for one reason and one reason only, for that stringy stretch, all right? Tastes of nothing, so we don't need it for flavour because I have got arguably one of the greatest cheeses. This is Mrs. Kirkham's, all right? This is a vintage Lancashire cheese, all right? It is delicious. If you can't get Lancashire cheese, use a good cheddar, but don't use mild cheddar because it's like this, it's got no flavour. Go for a mature cheddar, all right? So, I'm lucky enough to know the Kirkham's, so I have got some lovely Lancashire cheese. And yes, I am going to eat a bit just to make sure that it's really nice.
I think you should give some taste testers
I will.
Behind the scenes.
There you go. Carlos, are you a Mrs. Kirkham's kind of guy?
Always.
Always? You like a bit of Mrs. Kirkham, do you?
Yeah.
There you go. Delicious. Right, so straight in. Cheese with flavour, you know, with real guts. So whatever cheeses you have in your area where you live is okay, but I'm going Mrs. Kirkham's today. Good cheese, isn't it?
Yeah. It's one of those ones that you could just keep taking a slice of.
Yeah, I do often. And then Parmesan for seasoning. So that little sort of sharpness that you get from Parmesan. So we're just going to add a little bit of that. You could use pecorino as well if you wanted to. But it really is the opportunity to kind of put the cheeses in that you really like. But the combination of these three really work. And all I'm going to do is mix this together now and make sure that that mascarpone and mustard and egg yolks kind of coats everything. The great thing about this, it will freeze, so you can make way more than you need. And then you can just get little bits out. You can cut a chunk off, let it thaw out, and then use it. And even better, you can make all these toasties up and freeze them and just take one straight out the freezer, 150 degrees, butter it on the outside and whack it in the oven, and then you've got them. Ooh. So there is our cheese toasty mix. All we need now is our amazing Marmite and walnut bread. Right, it's time to bake the bread. Now, earlier I talked about just baking it straight onto a tray. What I also wanted to talk to you about is how you can bake it inside a cast aluminium pan with lid on. So what we're essentially doing is kind of cooking it in the Dutch oven style. So it's an oven inside an oven. So I've put this inside the oven for 30 minutes and got it really, really nice and hot. I'm just going to move the tray out of the way. And I'm going to show you how to do this. This has been in the oven for 30 minutes. Hello, Pip. Pip's just hovering around in case there's any crumbs. The dog, that is. And then just lift your dough out of the cloth. And then all I'm going to do is carefully transfer it into my hand and then lift it into the pot. Being really careful because it's preheated. Lid on. And then we're going to pop this into the oven and let it bake. Right, bread is baked. Now we've baked it inside the pan, so all the steam and moisture has been trapped inside. And steam and moisture really helps develop the crust of the bread, okay? So off with the lid. Now very carefully, just take your bread. There we go. Lift it out, and then that sounds like a good loaf. And listen how crispy that is. And that's because we've trapped it inside the pan. All the moisture's in there. The surface here is caramelized. Can you see that, Emily?
Yeah.
And that is a good loaf of bread. Time for toasties. Right, so let's carefully cut ourselves a slice.
It's warm, that end bit's always the best bit. You can see the steam.
Oh, look at that. That's a lovely loaf of bread, that. Right. That's a good sound. It makes me happy, that sound. Right. So there is one slice. I would do this really when the bread is cooled. It's much more sensible, but
You couldn't wait it.
there's some gannets over there that are hungry, so
I'm going to take a pen to that, Pete.
there we go. Look at that.
Oh.
Nice. So, time for toasties, okay? Now, take that wonderful toasty mix and pop it on there. Be as generous as you like with how much you want in there. Okay, I'm just going to turn my pan on. I'm actually using a crepe pan because it means you can see it toasting much better. Okay, now pop the lid on the bread. Okay, and then what we do is we butter the outside of the bread. Okay, and then place that into the pan. And then butter the other side, okay? And now we are going to toast this until it's golden and crisp. Now, if you don't want to do it in a pan, you could do it like this, put it on an oven tray, and then whack it in the oven, and it will toast as well. But I quite like doing it this way. Like the idea of this?
Absolutely.
Getting hungry?
Yep.
Right, fish slice.
Could you add anything to your cheese mix?
Yeah, good question that. I really like to add pickled shallots. So if you take shallots, slice them up, and then add some vinegar or lime juice over them, let them pickle for a couple of hours, you get the really tangy, oniony flavour. You could put more Marmite in. Chives, spring onion tops, they would all go in there really nice. You could stir a bit of chutney in there if you like that sort of thing. You could grate some apple in there, chilli. Pickled chilli's good. Chilies diced up and pickled in lime juice so they become hot and tangy.
You and your pickling.
I know, but if you buy, what are the chilies that you get with Mexican food?
Jalapenos.
Jalapenos are usually pickled. We buy them in this country in jars. They're pickled. Listen to the sound. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I was going to say you can see the bubbling on.
Yeah. Right, let's have a little look. Turn it over. Oh, look at that. It's a proper cheese toasty, that. Now, I'm just going to let this toast for 3 or 4 minutes on a medium heat and until it's all melted and delicious in the middle, and then it is ready to go. But like I said, beautiful loaf of bread recipe, how to make Marmite glazed walnuts recipe, and how to make the perfect cheese toasty recipe. Loads for you to be getting on with in your kitchen this weekend. Now, if you have any questions, please post them. I will be there to answer them. If you want the recipes from today or any of our other episodes, and I think we've done 35 to 40 episodes now since last year, so there's loads to be getting on with. You can watch them on my YouTube channel, Peter Sidwell, or you can watch them all on the Facebook pages. You can go to Cook, Serve and Enjoy and find all our recipes there. Please delve in, have a look, try this recipe out. I promise you it's amazing. But look, have some great times cooking this weekend. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode.